Man killed in an early morning traffic accident. Hurricane preparedness, the focus in the Southern District. And the Yellow Elder organization hosting its annual ball this weekend.
The Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening all. I'm Shashina Rolf-Arkeson. As always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping news, a young man is dead tonight, the victim of a traffic accident in the Western District. Now, he is the fourth person to die on the streets of Grand Bahama within the past week. Our Italia Hall spoke with grieving family members at the scene of that accident this morning. The fatal accident taking place on the main road in the Deadman's Reef community. The vehicle, a silver Honda Fit, was found in nearby bushes, the impact splitting the car in half, and the body of the driver, a young resident of West Grand Bahama, was trapped in the twisted wreckage. Many family members and friends were on the scene, emotional and in a state of shock. Now, officer in charge of traffic, Superintendent Jeremy Henfield, says police received a phone call shortly after 6 this morning.
On arrival, the police would have found a single car that would have ran off the road onto the southern shoulder. It appeared to have crashed into one of the utility poles here. It appeared to be a single lone driver in the vehicle, a male occupant who was injured severely and would have succumbed to his injuries here at the scene of this accident. Fire department would have assisted us with the jaws of life in assisting in getting the body out of this crash.
The victim is said to be Devon Poitier, also known as Vonnie. He is believed to be in his early 20s. Family member Clarice Newton says she had just finished her morning exercise routine and was one of the first persons to see the horrific scene.
Just saw this car up in the bushes, thinking that it's a rental or something, and reversing back because we saw someone standing out there that we knew. And when we came back, he's like, "It ain't good. It's funny." And I'm like, "Who?" And he's like, "This funny." He's like, "You joking, right?" And he's like, "No." So I just pull off to go try get help, and it's just bad from there. Funny is indescribable. I mean, everyone loves him.
Samantha Colton says when she received the devastating news, she did not understand what had taken place.
When I came in here, I went straight to the car and I saw his lifeless body laying there. That's when it really hit me that he's gone, he's gone. He's gone. In fact, right now, it still feels so surreal. It almost feels like a bad dream.
Superintendent Henfield is once again asking motorists to drive with caution and care.
If you feel that you're unable to make it, then, try to call a friend or maybe just try to pull to the side of the street. Maybe until you kind of catch yourself in a nice littered area, that is, until you're able to safely get to wherever you're going. We've lost yet another one. Just basically 3 crashes in a week. We would have lost 4 persons on the streets of Grand Bahama, which is far, far too much.
As a result of the horrific accident, traffic was backed up for quite a while, but once the body was removed, the traffic flow was restored. Reporting for ZNS Network News, I'm Italia Hall. Thanks, Italia. Well, Member of Parliament for West Grand Bahama and Bimini extending sympathy to the victim's family. Pakeisha Parker-Edgecombe noting that Poitier was a striving young man, well-mannered, well-loved, and known by many, particularly in West End. She says while the authorities are not certain at this time as to what may have caused the fatal accident, she says as a community, long-standing issues involving the streets in the West must be addressed. She says too many lives are being lost, and as an MP, with the help of stakeholders, they are committed to put in place road safety measures while spreading the message of road safety.
Well, today's deadly accident comes as police are investigating what has turned out to be a double fatality on the Warren-J. Highway. 2 men died after sustaining injuries in a traffic mishap on that major thoroughfare almost a week ago. Tonight, residents of the West are speaking out about the issue of streetlights and what role poor lighting may have played in that particular accident. Kimberly Mullings has more on this report.
The Warren-J. Highway, like Queens Highway heading into West Grand Bahama, are both considered problematic for all road users. While speed may be a contributing factor in some traffic accidents, poor lighting is said to have been the driving force behind some accidents as well. ZNS News took to the streets to get the views of residents about lighting concerns along the Fishing Hole Road that leads into the Western District. These anonymous residents are unsure of who is responsible for the lighting issue, but they hope it's rectified soon.
We need more street lights. We need more lampposts and stuff. There's enough lights on it. Highway doesn't have enough lights because after the storm, half of the lights was off, the poles and stuff like that, and they never replaced them. Makes me feel like nervous because when you're coming around the curve and stuff like that, some people don't even stop to the curve and you could barely see when you come around the curve.
I mean, it should have more lighting because most of the time you drive on the road, the street's dark and the high beam all around, it could blind you, cause you drive bad and all that, but need more lighting.
Resident Rith Thompson has been living in West Grand Bahama his entire life and says proper lighting is a basic right.
Everything is be dark. You can't see good. Coming around the curve, you have to really slow down and take your time because you could probably get in a serious accident. Well, I believe the power company have to do something about that situation. Well, the government got to do something too because, this is the first year in House of Parliament, so you got to give them a little time so they could get out there and do something.
Another anonymous resident is pointing fingers at the Grand Bahama Port Authority. She says she fears driving after the sun sets because it's simply too dark.
The port and the government need to come to some kind of collective agreement. The port and the government had an agreement with the Hawksbill Creek Agreement and they're not abiding by it concerning the light on the Garnet-Lavardi Highway. I just feel like the port need to adhere to the agreement. At night, traveling along Garnet-Lavardi Highway is extremely dark, and the power company and the government, the power company, along with the port, at the end of the day, the port is still involved. So the port has to now sit down with the government and the Grand Bahama Power Company and have this issue resolved in terms of the light.
8 Mile Rock resident Cooper had a few resolutions.
The new lights what they put up, I believe, they ain't bright enough because they saying it's saving power, but if the light's brighter, it could prevent more or less accidents, they are saying. Certain parts in 8 Mile Rock don't have no lights at all, especially when you're going down the Home Truck Bar area, the Home Truck West End Bar area, doesn't have no lights, they are saying. And that's where the people is be speeding most of the time or whatever. So they really need to do something better with the lights for sure.
ZNS News reached out to the Grand Bahama Power Company to find out who's responsible for the placement of streetlights across the island, and they issued the following statement. Street lighting on the island is provided as a service to the Grand Bahama Port Authority, the government, and private developers for their respective areas. The statement went on to say that quantities and placement of lights are at the discretion and request of respective bodies. Kimberly Mullings, ZNS Network News.
Now to news from the court. 3 males arraigned in court today in Freeport on armed robbery and attempted murder charges. The first suspect, Cornell Beckles, age 19, of Tamarind Street, was arraigned before Magistrate Charlton Smith on the charge of attempted murder. He was not required to enter a plea as the matter is an indictable offense. The case was adjourned to August 14th for trial, and Beckles was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services. Beckles is accused of shooting a man in Hernley earlier this month. The other 2 suspects were hauled before the court on armed robbery charges. Danny Roll, 22, of Somerville Drive, and Tommy Roll, age 23, of Malibu Drive, appearing before Magistrate Charlton Smith on armed robbery charges. They were not required to enter a plea as the matter is an indictable offense. The men are accused of robbing a club on East Sunrise Highway last month. The case was adjourned to July 29th. Two men from Abaco arraigned before the Abaco Marsh Harbor Court. 24-year-old O'Brien Rackley of Murphytown was charged before Magistrate Ansela Evans for causing grievous harm. He pled not guilty and was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until trial that is set for June 18th. And 19-year-old Lucius Tomati of the Mud was arraigned before Magistrate Evans on charges of stealing. Now, he pled guilty and he is currently awaiting sentencing. Switching gears now, the 2018 Atlantic hurricane season is just over a week away, and given the challenges of the past two seasons, ZNS Northern Services took its community outreach program to the Southern District, today with the focus on hurricane preparedness. Our Sabrina Brown was there.
The morning radio show was broadcast live from the Wheatley Grant Empowerment Center in Hunters, with a focus on coastal communities in the Southern District. Researchers at Colorado State's Tropical Meteorology Project are predicting an above-average hurricane season, with 14 named storms. 7 could become hurricanes, 3 of which could be major. The Weather Channel's early predictions suggest a more average year, with 13 named storms and 6 hurricanes, 2 of which could be major. But whatever the predictions, Senior Meteorological Officer Kirk James says the important thing is to be prepared.
Residents should be aware of their vulnerability. They should know that. They should stock off on non-perishable items. They should clear any drains in the area, trim trees, easements, and the usual preparation we go through this year after year. And so make sure you have first aid kit. Make sure your insurance plans is up to date. Have a battery radio.
Member of Parliament for Central Grand Bahama and Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Works, Iram Lewis, is also urging residents to be prepared. He says the government is taking steps to safeguard communities within the Southern District against tidal waves.
One of the ways that we are protecting these communities is by putting up defense walls or sea walls. We have had our structural engineers, our coastal engineers on island recently, and they have examined all of the settlements along the southern shoreline with a view of erecting seawalls. The height of the seawalls will be determined based on the elevation of the existing elevation and the exposure that the various settlements would have to the tidal surge.
Chairman of Local Government's Pinders Point Township, Jackie Russell, is calling on residents to lend a helping hand should a storm threaten our island.
Residents, I need you to volunteer your time. This is the time now for you to step up to the plate and assist your community. How can we help you if you don't help us? So Pinders Point Township Chairman is making an appeal to you residents to please volunteer your time. We will need you.
Pinders Point, Lewis Yard, Hunters, and Mactown are evacuation zones. Residents Marjorie Darville and Simon Lewis are advising residents to heed the warnings when a storm is approaching, as they know all too well the devastation a hurricane can bring.
I saw storm surge came over a 15-foot cliff. So therefore, I would urge residents to please, if there's a hurricane, please go to the shelter.
It makes no sense to be stubborn and to sit down here and you know a storm is coming. Let's get out and find someplace safe so that those who are out there trying to protect don't have to come and rescue you.
Sabrina Brown, ZNS Network News.
Stay with us, there's more news right after this.